If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one.
Listen to his language pattern. It's not, you might pay a tariff. It's, you will pay a tariff. Like, that's the whole key. Regardless if we agree or not, we want to talk about the technique around it, and was it a good use of his persuasion. He said, tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul of our country.
Oh.
Ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Hey, and welcome to Jason Forrest Show. I'm with my wife, Mary Forrest, and today we're talking about so many cool things. We're talking about Trump's first State of the Union speech that he gave to Congress in March, 1st of March. We're talking about did he say the right things? Not from a politician perspective, but from a persuasion perspective. So we're going to break down the persuasion tactics that he did, and we're going to talk about, like, was it effective? Like, did it actually do the right thing? Did he convince America based upon these key persuasion tactics? We're going to use neuro-linguistic programming. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about several things. We're also going to talk about all of these different these job cuts that are happening right now with Doge. And of course, if you're a company trying to sell to people who are losing their jobs right now, like, how can you take advantage of it? Not in a negative way, but how can you give that customer certainty, and how can you show that you're different than everyone else? And we're also going to talk about this crazy thing that Gen Zs are doing right now with taskmasting. It's the dumbest decision ever, but sometimes people make dumb decisions when you're young. So we're talking about how to not to do that. So many great things. Ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. All right, Mary. So what I want to do is I want to break down Trump's speech. He had his first State of the Union address to Congress. And what I'm going to do is I want to use our neuro-linguistic programming background, and I want to break down his speech. And so what I did is there's so many different tactics. Of course, we know hundreds of different persuasion tactics people can use, but I want to specifically break down. I found eight or nine that I want to kind of talk through and talk about how salespeople can apply these same concepts too. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. So the first one that Trump does over and over and over again in his address is he uses this concept called repetition. And so, for example, he would say, America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back. And so, what's the key word that he used there?
Is back.
Is back, right? So he's just has it repetition. And so, why do you think it's so important, from an NLP perspective, persuasion perspective, and influence perspective? Why is it so important to say the same thing over and over and over again the same way?
Well, I'm thinking the myelin connections that you're creating, because same as good habits and bad habits we talk about all the time. If somebody says to you, hey, I think your price is really expensive, and you immediately are like, let me tell you the incentives that I have, and you're programmed because you've said it over and over and over again, that's your repetition is in a negative way. So if you're wanting to reprogram yourself, especially, with good behaviors or good beliefs, then you want to do the same thing.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. So the idea is that if we want to, so repetition can be used in the sense of reinforcing something positive, but it could also be used in the sense of desensitizing something negative, is what you're basically talking about, right?
Oh yeah, I like that. It was not what I was talking about. That's better than what I was talking about.
No, I think that's where I was going. That's where I thought you were going. You're my soulmate. That's where I thought you were going. So the idea is, from a positive perspective, is that where you went, right? We need to reinforce and create those myelin connections. So if you say something one time, so first of all, explain what a myelin connection is so everyone gets it, because I don't think people can understand that concept.
Okay, so it's the connection between different synapses in your brain. So it's how myelin is the sheathing. The thicker it is, the faster that the connection is. So something that you do all the time that's on autopilot for you, that's going to have a lot of myelin. The ones that something you're doing for the very first time, the reason it feels awkward and clunky doing it, especially a new sales script and you're doing it the first time, it feels weird. That's because you don't have any myelin connection there.
Got it. So myelin is again the sheathing around the nerve endings in your brain, and the first time you do anything, it creates one connection, and then the second time you do the same exact thing, it creates this myelin sheathing, and then the third to fourth time. So basically the idea behind it is if you do something once, it creates like a groove. It creates a road. It creates like a dirt path, and then the second time it's like a gravel path, and the third time, so it just keeps making the road better until it becomes like the Autobahn and people are going hundreds of miles an hour. That's the idea of myelin sheathing in the brain.
And then you feel oh, that's just who I am. That's my authentic self. And it's well, it's your practice self.
Yeah, it's your practice self. Yeah, I love that. So okay. So that's myelin sheathing. So what you're talking about, which is a cool kind of connection here, is that so we're talking about myelin sheathing normally when it comes to like people like mastering something and becoming the best of something. What you're talking about, though, which is pretty awesome too, is that you're talking about that we want to create myelin sheathing as it relates to influencing people.
Yeah, influencing people, including yourself.
So I mean, if you say something over and over again, you start to believe it.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and what I'm laughing about is I loved the video you put out this week.
Tell me more. I want to know the
I even made a comment. I don't usually troll your pages. Sometimes I do.
I love when my wife trolls my
Sometimes I troll your pages. But you did a video on the 14 ways to be terrible at sales.
Love that video.
Oh my gosh. I was laughing out loud. But one of the things that you said in there was keep repeating to yourself like how bad your day is going to be and how bad your sales appointments are going to be, something like that. And anyway, that's reminding me of, because you said you should repeat this every single day, how bad everything's going to go, in order to make sure that you fail.
Love it. Okay. So like in that video, obviously I was kind of joking that
Correct.
if you repeat all the reasons why you're going to fail over and over again, then you will, again, start to kind of create a prophecy around that, which we don't want to do. We don't want to, like what we say out loud, we profess, right? So we don't want to be careful about that. But specifically when it came to Trump, so he was saying over and over again, America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back. And so again, he's trying to just with that influence, just reinforce this idea over and over again that America's back, spirit's back, we're all back, like everything's great, like we're going to do this. Like, so if you say something over and over again, it's creating that myelin connection in the brain. And it's like, oh, well, maybe there's some truth to this. And so like I get it. Like I heard it the first time, I'm starting to get it. And there's a cool concept around that with, I think it's Alex Hormozi actually said this one time. And he said that people don't need to be reminded, people don't need to be taught, they need to be reminded. And what a great concept. I agree with that. That's why we go to church every Sunday. It's like, same book every Sunday. The book doesn't change. The book's been the book for a long time, many years, few decades, right? Same book. And I've been going to church since I was a little kid, and same exact book, but different kind of spin on the message in order to reinforce the thing, because we need to be reminded more than be taught. And so repetition is so important when it comes to influencing others.
Yeah, it's what changes our beliefs. It's what creates mastery in ourselves. It's what install beliefs, all of the things.
All of the things. Okay. So right now, people are listening. Let's talk about how we can apply this idea of repetition to selling something like a home. And then also we do a lot of work with companies that sell to builders. And so specifically in this case, we'll talk about how to sell like a window, which we're really going to apply to a lot of things, like a window or a door or whatever. We also help people that sell doors as well. So doors and windows and whatever else to builders. And so the first thing when it comes to selling a home is, it's like what you want to do is you want to take something that you want to like anchor. So let's say it's like safety or security, something like that. And so you'd want to like connect that over and over again. It's like this home, it means safety to your family. This community, it's gated. It means like safety to your family, or safety. This enclosed backyard, again, it means like safety, privacy, to your family. Like, so like take something that you want to anchor or you want to reinforce, and like, what is that for you? And you want to just say it over and over and over again. And eventually it's going to create that myelin connection, and people will start to connect to it and go, okay, all right, well, if I buy from him, I'm going to get safety. And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I think there's two ways that we could do it. Is one of my favorite concepts of yours is when we are like naming the product or naming the home instead of the floor plan name that the builder gives it, instead of going, this is our entertainment home, or this is our safety home, or this is our family home. So we name it, and then we can call it that over and over again. That's calling to how they're going to remember it. So one of those ways of saying it, the reason is I want them to remember my home versus the floor plans of any other builder. But the other way that I like to do this is listening to what's most important to them, because I think you can look at a home and I can either point out what makes it safe, or there's ways to entertain in this home. Maybe it's the entertaining home, but I can do that based on what's important to the person in front of me. And then I'm highlighting those things. That way I have a custom presentation for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So, okay. So how would a salesperson, like, what's like a pro tip? Like, what's a pro tip to make sure that they are, you're talking about a lot of things. You're talking about like using the power of repetition. You're also using the power of anchoring. Like, you're doing a lot of things like in once. Like, it's like you're like an ultimate fighting champion. Like Joe Rogan would be so powerful for you right now. Like, you're so proud of you. Be like doing so many cool things. Okay, so how do you do that right though? How do you make it like not just a generic thing that you repeat, but at the same time, how do you anchor it, and how do you again connect it to something personalized to them? Because you're doing a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. So the first thing is in your discovery. Well, I think the most important thing, I say this all the time, but it is that important that it needs to be repeated. The most important thing in discovery is to not teach, not pitch, not educate, not share, not even really agree. When you're in discovery with somebody, be really quiet and just listen to what they're saying. So most of the time you're going to hear the person in front of you repeat words, and they're going to just let you know. Especially the more feeling they are and the more emotional, the more they're just going to let you know. So a lot of times you can just, if you're just listening really carefully, you're going to hear it. You can then confirm it, and then you're going to say that statement all throughout the home. But let's say they're not. Let's say you've got like a very analytical person, and they're just giving you, I need this many bedrooms, and I need this many dining areas, and I need, blah, 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 all the things they need. Well, then you can invite them to share with you like 3 words that describe how they want to feel in their home, or what is the most important thing to them in a home. And whenever you do that, it can be important if they're already struggling at sharing these things to bind it. So I'm going to throw in another NLP concept right here to bind, to say, I wonder what's most important in a home for you, Jason. Is it that it's cozy for you at the end of a long day? Is that it's like open and entertaining and very warm and welcoming for other people? Or is it a place where you are going to work? Like, are you working from your home? So what's the most important vibe or feel for you inside the home? And see, in that one, I gave you a binding question, which is 3 options, and allow you to let me know what that is. And now I've got it if I've struggled to figure that out throughout the process.
That's super brilliant. Okay, so you're using, really cool. And by the way, I love that your dad would be really proud of you right now, because I know Mr. Blaine Wrench is all about being really quiet and just asking lots of questions during discovery. So he's really proud of that. So you're saying, so first is one technique, a pro tip would be to, again, bind the question, bind the customer, give them some multiple choices of how do they want this, how does this home going to make them feel? Is it going to be cozy? Is it going to be cozy? Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be entertaining? Whatever it's going to be, right? So first is bind them on those emotional questions, emotional question, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it's once they like say what it is, let's say cozy. All right, well that's the key word. I'm gonna write cozy down in my notes, and I'm gonna say, okay, well, how can I say the word cozy and connect and anchor through repetition the word cozy to like so many different things? Like how is this? Is this living room going to be cozy for you? Or can you as you walk into this game room, can you imagine yourself like just like hanging out by the fireplace and with a nice blanket and a glass of wine and just kind of being cozy, right? So like that's kind of the idea.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah, that's a very, very brilliant thing to do. Okay, so repetition totally applies to obviously Trump. It applies to on his persuading the American population. It obviously applies to selling home. And then if you're selling windows to builders, then same thing. It's like our windows save your customers money, save them energy, and save your company from warranty headaches, right? So it's like constantly, like in this case, this script would be that we wrote was like, how do I save? Like that's the key word there.
Yeah. But with what you just said, you could even ask your prospect. You gave 3 different things that the window is going to do for the company, but you could ask that in a binding question of, hey, people love us for 3 reasons, and they keep using us to do the windows in their home for 3 reasons. 1, it gets rid of warranty headaches. 3, it's more cost efficient, and or 2 and 3, whatever else you said. Which one of those is most important? Now that I have that, so let's say financial is for them because of whatever reason, I'm now going to anchor that throughout my process. Or I want to make a really fiscally sound decision, or look, we cannot handle the amount. We are so backed up on warranty things. We've got to have a product that we're not going to have issues with. The warranty, we cannot deal with that anymore. Great. Well, let me show you how. And I'm going to anchor everything that I teach them around that thing that they told me is the most important thing. That way I'm not guessing the whole time.
It's great. I mean, people want a made for you experience. And so by you doing this, you're just creating a made for you experience. Like you're finding out the things that are most important to them, and then you're just using their words back for them in order to help influence them. Why? Because just like my mom said, people do not argue with their own advice. and so we want to use their advice for them to help influence them to make a decision to improve their life and solve their problems, which is pretty awesome. Okay, number 2. So the second thing that Trump did that is he asked rhetorical questions. So specifically, rhetorical questions are really interesting things. I kind of want to talk about that. Is this idea where he was specifically referring to the previous administration, and he would say like, who would want to do that? And he was referring to the border policy and kind of thing. So he's asking more of this rhetorical, kind of question. And rhetorical questions are kind of weird, right? Because it's a question that I'm asking that I'm not asking for a response. Like I'm not asking, but I'm asking, like, what do you think the point of a rhetorical question is? Like from an influence perspective, like what do you think the psychology is behind that? Like what's the persuasion technique by asking a question that I'm not actually asking for a response? It's rhetorical.
It's interesting. I've never thought about this before. It makes me go to, I'm anchoring it in myself to embedded questions. So I think with the rhetorical question is going to be, I want to lay a foundation. We're on the same page because I'm about to add on to that concept, but I need to make sure that we have this belief system, or I need to get you to a certain mindset or a certain belief or a certain thought, because then from there I can take you to the next place.
Okay, I like that. So the idea is, you're like installing, like you're trying to install like a new belief system, and you're trying to like almost like test the waters. Like it's like a little. I'm just kind of like testing to make sure that we're on the same page with this. And
because I think with rhetorical questions, if somebody's in agreement, I mean, it's kind of clear, especially when you think like, who would do that, right? We know what your idea and your perception is. So if somebody agrees with you, they'll be silent. If they lightly disagree with you, they might be silent. If they highly disagree with you, they're going to say something. Mm-hmm. And so it is a testing to make sure that it's not an outlying belief.
Got it.
And that I'm clear to say the next thing that I want to say. And whatever's next is probably the more important thing.
Got it. So, okay. So, and I think these are kind of tricky because I believe, I 100% know that salespeople can misuse this concept and probably, I don't know, kind of, it can backfire. So for example, like something you could say, but I think you should use it sparingly.
Sparingly.
Yeah, like,
I got you.
Okay. Is that I'm a master practitioner in language and I can't speak. So is wouldn't you love your kids to grow up in a neighborhood known for safety, great schools, and wonderful friends? So again, it's a great question. It's a rhetorical question, and I like it, but you got to be careful that you don't misuse it, because it's like, well, yeah, of course I want that. Like, it's like, so you want to be careful like how you come across. Like it reminds me of like the greatest movie of all times. Like there's Gone with the Wind, there's Braveheart, there's Gladiator, and there's Couples Retreat. And in Couples Retreat, there's a scene, right, where he's like trying to pitch the whole, the group, Vince Vaughn and everyone. And he says something, he's like, wouldn't you like to take a break, get away from the winter, and like go to the beach and like do jet skis and all this kind of stuff? And Vince Vaughn's like, what are you gonna ask me that question like that? Of course I want to do that. It's like asking Richard Simmons, do you want to like stuff your face? Of course he wants to do that, but he can't. He's got to dance around. He got to dance around the oldies, and he got to wear those tight shorts. Anyway, it's just kind of funny thing like that. So the idea behind it is like, that's a great example of, we got to be careful that we're not misusing rhetorical questions. That's like kind of ticking people off.
Right. That you sound condescending.
There you go. Perfect.
That's the word that comes up. It's like it's condescending. Like, wouldn't you like your kids to be safe? Yeah, jerk. I mean, dumb, right? It's a dumb question. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't want to say something that's that everybody feels. Otherwise, you're it's like you're testing again, right? The purpose of it is to assess like, are they an outlier or something? But in this one, to be an outlier would be a bad person. And so it looks like you're testing to see if they're a bad human being.
Yeah.
And then they don't like you.
Yeah. So
and they don't have to like you and be friends with you to buy from you, but you don't want them to not like you and think you're a condescending jerk. That doesn't work.
100%. 100%. So, okay. So to me, I almost feel like we should move on because I think rhetorical questions are, it's like one of those things. It's like, you gotta be really careful how you ask those questions because again, you don't want to come across like you're just, I don't know, using something that again, kind of offends the person and almost like talks down to them. So just be real careful when you ask those questions.
Well, I wonder if you do them in reverse. Like, can you imagine the people that don't care about having all of this?
Oh, that's good.
So if I say it like, it's still rhetorical, but I'm talking about other people. I'm not asking it directly of you. I think it softens it and then makes it an easier, more approachable thing for everyone to use.
Got it. So like if I was selling windows right now, for example, to take your approach, which I love, like the whole great spin on rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions is this. So it's like, so it's like, can you imagine the other window companies that are like totally fine risking their reputation on installing inferior windows versus really standing out and installing superior windows that make their builders look great?
Exactly.
So that would be like a way.
Well, it's also bonding you by having an enemy on the
That's really
outside.
good.
So now together, we're against the people that are not living up and providing to our standard to our clients.
That's really good. This is like a whole other level. Like I wish Trump would have done that. That would have been much better.
That would have been better.
That would have been way better because the rhetorical question thing I think is a risky one. But the way that you like totally spun that and you make a rhetorical question combined with like an enemy, I think is a perfect use of that.
It's easy. You are not going to it can't be condescending because it's not to them, and it's not about you or about somebody else.
It's really great. I bet you in couples retreat they would have sold Vince Vaughn faster. They would have used that technique.
They would not have had to break into the window at midnight.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay,
Yeah.
Number three, show no gray area. So in Trump's speech, his big thing was like no ambiguity, he's just real black and white, which is important when you're influencing anyone. You never want anyone to have like any confusion on things. And so he said, if you don't make your product in America, you will pay a tariff. So listen to his language pattern. It's not you might pay a tariff, or we might come after you, or you might be punished for this. Like no might, it's you will pay a tariff. Like that's the whole key. So again, we're not talking about right now do we agree with his philosophy or not. That's not the point. On this show, we want to talk about is it regardless if we agree or not is like just the technique around it, and was it a good like NLP technique? Was it a good use of his persuasion to be black and white? And I think it is, but what do you think?
I always do. And I think yes to sales, but I spend a ton of my time with leadership, and with leaders, I think this is a huge thing too. If somebody doesn't know where they stand or how to win, if we can be very clear on, I need this, like I'll hear a lot of people say, hey, I need you to get this back quickly. What does quickly mean? And so now just using that type of language, I now am uncertain. I don't know how to win. I could go do this and turn it back in an hour, but was that quickly to you, or am I 35 minutes late? And so when we can be really clear as well, like I need this back in 2 hours. I need this done by end of day. If especially like, let's talk about performance improvement plans. It's not like, here's the thing to do. If you do these exact things, you're good. Follow these steps. Nothing that's ambiguous around it. Otherwise, it just creates too much uncertainty in everyone else. And I think that's good for both, the reward and punishment things, like the things that you're putting in place that are like a performance improvement plan, but also on, hey, here's how you get a bonus. Like do better than last year. What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Right. Sell this dollar amount by this date, you get this bonus. Well, now I know how to win, and I feel really certain. So I think both on kind of the carrot and stick, the positive and the negative, the more clear we can be, the more black and white in those areas, it just creates certainty.
Okay. So I love that because it makes me think of a coaching session that I just had with a owner of a company. So he's an owner of a home building company, and he outsources his homes to outside sales agents, which is fine. There's good news and bad news about that. But he said to me, I've said to them over and over again, if they don't sell houses for me, they won't be here. And so I told him, I said, one, I mean, that's no black and white. I mean, that's what he's doing. But his no black or white concept is not the right direction. So the direction I told him is I said, the problem with that approach is that their whole thing is, okay, if the ultimate goal is to sell houses, then how do I find the easiest way to do that? And in their case, the easiest way is to convince you that it's not them, that it's the product, it's the price, it's the market, it's the traffic, it's the economy, it's interest rates. All the other factors are the reason why they're not selling houses. And so if your whole focus is you got to sell houses or else, then they're going to come back and go, oh, well, I can't control those variables. It's all these other things. I have nothing to do with that. So the advice I gave him is I said, that's fine. I love your black and white conversation you have with them. Just be specific. So instead of saying, if you don't sell houses, you're out, it's if you don't follow the process, you're out. Because that's 100% of their control. That's all you're focused on. Like, it's very black and white. If you don't follow the process, you're out. But it's also kind of cool because they can control that. They can follow the process, and the process doesn't work. Well, then that's on him now. That's not on them, which is very liberating for them to do if they decide to do that. And so to me, I think it's very important too to have that black and white direction, but at the same time, you got to be careful what you're telling them to be black and white about.
I love that. And I because they do want to have control, and they also, it's a hard thing to say, but whether someone's going to buy or not, it's not 100% in the salesperson's hands. It's not. I mean, we have control over what we say, what we do, how we react, how we handle things, how we show up at the end, and that we can do a ton of things that are gonna shift it to make it more probable that they're going to buy. And so that's what he's doing right there, which is empowering them as well.
100%. Yeah. So, and again, and they might not like it. I mean, the sales team might not like it because again, they've now he by doing that, he's eliminating their excuses, and it's and he's eliminated their ability to kind of manipulate him and kind of maneuver around the whole situation. And it's look, it's all about this one thing. Just follow the process. You follow the process, the school will take care of itself. If you don't follow the process, you're going to be out of here. That's important.
Yeah. Or they might feel really empowered by that as well, because selling a house or not selling a house, the weight and pressure of that. But if you, and I'm saying if you, but you did do this when I was selling for the company full time. And I remember you said, this is what you're going to do this. And if it doesn't work, it's on me. It's my play. I called it. If it doesn't work, it's not your fault. It's my fault. And it was oh, okay. So now I can just go and do it full out and not have to worry about the results of it. But if I think I might lose a sale and then get in trouble for losing it too, and I didn't know the plan, I'm trying to create the plan and run the plan and the whole thing, that's a lot for a salesperson to do.
It's a lot for a salesperson.
And a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, that's right. So again, going back to this idea of this show no gray area. So a way that a salesperson can use this when it comes to selling a home is that they could say something like, it's always black and white. So it's either or. So you can buy this beautiful home today and immediately start improving your life and having this cozy home in this great backyard, or you can continue to rent and lose money. So that would be an example of black and white. It's either or between this or this, or it's, so again, if I'm selling windows, you can install these premium windows today and make your, if I'm selling to a builder, you can install those premium windows today and make your customers really happy, or you can risk complaints by putting in a cheaper, inferior product. So that's an example of, again, it's just very black and white, no ambiguity, what are you going to do? So it's this either or kind of concept.
Yeah. And I think you're doing a couple concepts there, because it's an either or, but it's also, you're showing a negative outcome frame from the other option as well too. So sometimes, I think you can do black and white. I like you're doing double concept here, which I think is really good. But you can also do it on homes or even windows. You can go today with this package at this price that we're going to do, this one community for you, or here's the price if we're doing the windows for all of your communities. So it's very clean. It's very clear. You can buy this house today as is at this price, or you can wait 9 months and have this floor plan with the options that you choose at this price. So it's also very clear, but you're doing a double time there.
Sounds like fun. We love the double times. Okay. Number 4 is the fourth thing that Trump did many things he did, but the fourth thing that I wrote down was appeal to identity. And man, I'm just such a big, I feel like I've done so many webinars. I know you've heard me do so many webinars. I know you've talked a lot about this, but identity selling is so important. I recently just did a private exclusive webinar on studying Don Draper and, the amazing, fictional salesperson selling the Kodak carousel. And I came up with this framework that I studied that he did with the EIS framework of emotions, identity, and storytelling. But he did the same thing here. So Trump did, Don Draper will be very proud of Trump. So he basically he said, we are a country of doers, dreamers, fighters, and survivors. We are a country of doers, dreamers, fighters, and survivors. Think about that. Think about, no one can argue with that. Who's going to argue with, we're a country of doers, dreamers, fighters, and survivors. It's again, even if you don't like the guy, it's I can't argue with that. I want to be a doer. I want to be a dreamer. I want to be a fighter. I want to be a survivor. That's what I want to be. Who doesn't want to be that? It's a cool concept. And so it started making me think about, from persuasion perspective, how do I leverage that? How do I, when I'm selling something, in training, or if we're, teaching our clients, how do we leverage something like that where we get them to be super excited about the identity of buying this thing? Because when they buy this thing, they're going to become something, which is kind of an interesting thing, right?
Really interesting, but I'm kind of laughing because I think you already do this.
Okay, well, tell me more. so.
I thought this is where you were going with it. Well, because when you're talking to people, you tell them, there's the people that we work with, they want to be a servant, they want to be a leader, or they want to be a protector. And the best want to be all three, but which are you? And we're pulling them in because who doesn't want to serve? Who doesn't want to lead? And who doesn't want to protect their customers? So they're things that you want to be a part of.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. I get geeked out. I get excited when I see super persuasive things like this, and it's just really cool, So it's just so thank you for saying that I'm doing that. And I know you do that as well. I don't know. It's just really cool when you see other people do it and you're like, oh, that's so cool. How do I do more of that? I think that's really the goal. And so when selling a home, if you're selling a home, then again, it's this community is so filled with ambitious people that are just like you, that are focused on their family. They're focused on making money. They're focused on having fun, luxurious things. And if you want to be around people like that, you should buy here too. It's pretty cool, so it's think about if you're selling a home or a luxury item, it's who are the people that are buying that? And it's really interesting because I think so often people make mistakes because they're trying to make things very inclusive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So inclusive, and instead they should make things very exclusive. Which, right? It's so much more important to do that. So, because I think when people hear what I just said, they're going, well, Jason, I don't know if, what if I'm not selling to ambitious people, But I understand. But look at your demographics, though. You have so many people that are ambitious. And so people want to be people around people like them. And so, do that. Sell, have a theme, have a concept, and, that's your brand. And so, work that brand. People need to know, what you stand for, what you claim, and, do that. People want that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think exclusivity is good. People do want exclusivity. And even that's what clubs are in school. Not everyone is in the math club. Not everyone is a cheerleader. Not everyone is an athlete. Not everyone is on the spirit committee. That's okay. And you get together to have an exclusive group of like-minded people that want to live in a certain way or do a certain activity. That's great. But it is interesting that somehow we get into business and we're we need to build homes for all people. We need to, in these scenarios, our windows are for all people. No, your homes and your windows are not for all people. And that's okay. I think people need permission to not be for everybody. You are not for everybody.
Yeah, I'm not for everyone. You're definitely not for everyone. You're just for one person. That's me. So, okay. So I think, what's interesting about this, so several things are coming up right now. So number one, is that, and I'm sure there's plenty of research on this, that the brands that are obviously pushing very inclusive type brands, we're for everyone and we believe in everyone kind of thing, I would assume they're probably not making as much money as the brands that are very exclusive, that are very niche, I mean, there's an old cliche concept of the more you get niche, you're rich, right? So that's the whole idea, which I think is really interesting. But I also think, sorry, just kind of a new thought here, that I think so often, the question that people ask, and it's been asked of me a lot, is that like, so what's your what's the size business that you serve? And I'm actually saying this for the first time ever. It's kind of interesting because I've always struggled with that business. I've always struggled with that question, like what's the size business that you serve, right? Because there are, in general, we don't like public companies, but we do. I mean, there are some public companies that we enjoy, but in general, we don't. But then there are some mom and pops that we don't like, right? So it's like, okay, so what's really the answer? The answer is we just want warriors. So as long as you're a warrior, as long as you believe in personal responsibility, as long as you believe that salespeople make a difference, as long as you believe in creating the ultimate sales experience, as long as you believe in details matter and follow a disciplined sales process, and you want to create like a culture of like high performance excellence, and you want no excuses, no victimness, and you want to be the hero of your own story, like you're our customer. Like that's what we want. I don't care if you're a mom and pop. I don't care if you're a one man show. I don't care if you have 1,000 people. I don't really care. Like it's just like that's what we want, which I think is interesting. You know what I mean? It's an interesting concept because this is the first time I ever said that.
I love that. I thought you flipped it on me, and I agree with that. It's really fun. Like as long as you own your stuff, as long as you believe that you win or you lose, it's all on you, and you don't want to blame any other departments or the market or your company or your product or your employees or anything else. You're it.
Yeah, we want to work with you. We don't care how big you are, how small you are. We don't care. Like we don't care as long as that's the only thing we do. We don't care about that stuff. We care about this one thing. And that's you want to be a hero, you don't want to be a victim, and you want to take personal responsibility for your success, and you want to be great, and you want to be better than yesterday, and you just want to keep being better. Like that's what we care about. As long as that's the case, then we don't care.
Yeah.
We don't care.
You're right, because we've had people call us that are like within the industries that we serve a ton in, that are the size that we'll normally work with. Everything else would check the boxes. But then I'm on the phone with them. I'm like, okay, so what's really important, sales leader, is that you need to be there on the sales calls with everybody. You need to be the wingman. You need to, this is what you're going to do. Oh, no. We're hiring you because I don't want to do any of that. I'm really sorry. Like, this is not going to work out.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
Because they just want to like outsource.
Just
excellence.
like hand it off to somebody else. I mean, honestly, they can do that, but it's going to be way more money to do that. That's not what they're not wanting to pay to outsource it that way.
Well, yeah, they want to outsource excellence, and you can't do that.
No.
Like it's not a thing. It's like an oxymoron to outsource excellence. Like you just can't do that. You outsource mediocrity, you outsource things to take them off your list, but you don't outsource excellence.
Well, and that's also on the recruiting side. Hey, I want you to find me someone excellent. We're not going to do anything excellent inside. We're not going to onboard them excellently. We're not going to lead them excellently. We're not going to give them materials, but like find us someone excellent. I mean, that happens too. It's rare, but we have those situations, but everything else they would have checked the box. But then we have people that don't check any of the boxes, might even be an industry we know nothing about. We didn't even know it was an industry that existed. That's always what makes me laugh, is when somebody calls me, I'm like, that's a job?
Yeah.
Like that's a business?
That happens a lot.
You do that? How did you even know this was a thing? So fascinating. And yet they end up having the spirit, the energy, the vibe that we have, and they do great. We work great together, but never in a million years, if you'd given me a piece of paper with, a few boxes checked and not checked of who they are, I would have been like, I don't know about this. But I wonder if that's the way it is, maybe like with employees, employers, just around, like if that is one of the keys to just who should work together, period, should always be around that. Like, is the energy the same, the belief system the same, and the rest of it will work itself out.
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, because that's like the essence of a culture. I mean, in the culture of something is the culture of an organization is nothing more than the shared of beliefs. So for example, on a scale of 1 to 10, if let's say 10 is the like personal response, like the warrior, and a 1 is a victim, and you've got whatever 5 people in the group, and you've got several 10s, and you've got several 1s, you got a couple, you got 5, whatever. So the idea behind it is like the average of that culture is the average of all these little beliefs around this one value system of, am I going to be a warrior or am I going to be a victim? And so what you're saying is, if you just like like just have a series of values. Like let's take five, have five values. Warrior like work ethic should be one of them, but so like take those and then like make that your goal, right? So like hire people that would only be, 8, 9s, and 10s on this value that you care about. And what you're presupposing, what you're hypothesizing is that like that the task is not really the problem, right? It's like they're going to get stuff done as long as they're all unified around like the right values.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, remember the production team with the builder I worked with in Florida. And I had all of these hypotheses on people needed to be really urgent to be efficient. They needed to be able to have very gray thinking on some things, not options, but gray thinking on some areas, like so they can grow. And I had all these beliefs that I had watched in other companies be successful. And all of a sudden I get to them, they have opposite beliefs of what I thought we were looking for, but they all matched up. They all believed the same things, and it worked. They had this very efficient company, which was really interesting because I was like, okay, when you're hiring, one of the things that's really interesting is that they had a culture of extremely high militancy. Like everybody, like 90% of them had extremely high militancy, which is like, I need things to be fair, and if I don't feel like it's fair, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to be, and if I don't win at fighting you, I'm going to go start a union. I'm going to start a coup. I'm going to break this whole thing up. Like it makes you kind of nervous if you have a lot of people that are on that side. They were on that side, but they all believed the same thing. So it was actually great because they had this, and it was opposite of what I thought it was going to be. But because it was the same, they had a very, very efficient culture. It was fascinating to me.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of concept. Because again, we're saying now is that maybe it's more about that than it is anything else. Okay, all right, another conversation, another day. So, so number 5, the fifth thing that I wrote down that Trump did was he injected ridicule, doubt, and suspicion. So this is a really tricky one that we'd be really careful about because you just have to do it the right way. So whenever you do this, when you're selling against the competition, you have to do it in a way that makes you sound strong. It doesn't make you sound kind of weak and like you're afraid of the competition. But let me tell you what he did, and we'll talk about it. So he said, your CHIPS Act is a horrible, horrible thing. They take our money and they don't spend it. So the CHIPS Act, I didn't even really know what this was until he said it. But the CHIPS Act basically stands for Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors Act. Who in the world came up with that? I don't know. So again, creating helpful incentives to produce Semiconductors Act. So basically, this was a thing that the previous administration did, and the purpose of it was to encourage semiconductors to do more business and kind of create more semiconductors in the United States. What he is basically saying, again, we're not saying it's correct or incorrect. What he is saying is that the money kind of went to these companies and it never actually like went into building semiconductors. So it actually never like did what it was supposed to do. It was just kind of another wasteful spending kind of thing the government did. That's what he's saying. So again, we're not saying it's correct or incorrect, but we're just saying that he used this persuasion technique that he's injecting ridicule, doubt, and suspicion on like what the competition is doing to make his argument stand out that he's doing something better. Okay. So like, for example, if you were to sell something like a home, then what you would do is you would say, you could totally, let's say, for example, like you're selling a new home and a person's like thinking about buying this older home that is, of course, going to save them money because most people don't buy older homes unless you're trying to save money. That's usually the main reason. So you could say 100%, you could totally buy this fixer-upper and have like, have like weekly projects and weekend projects. You could totally do that. But why would you want to waste all of your weekends doing that versus just enjoying your brand new home? So that's like a way of, I'm going to inject that doubt and ridicule and suspicion and like this idea, like, is this really a good idea that you're doing? Because you could do that, but here's what's going to happen if you do it.
Is it the same thing if we use that approach to them not making a move? or not making a change. So, and I'm just thinking this because I've spent so much time in the last week creating a new course on for 55 plus communities. And I'm thinking about a lot of times in that one, I think through, hey, there are real things that could go wrong in not moving into a 55 plus community, because all of this, you're not going to be able to use stairs maybe, or especially, or you're not going to be able to utilize all of your home, or so many things can happen there. You can't maintain a huge yard anymore. You don't want to, right? You want to vacate. You want to go to sandals. Everybody loves sandals.
Everybody loves sandals.
You want to go to sandals every 6 weeks. So you can't keep up with the yard and your chickens and all that kind of stuff that you have right now on your homestead.
Who has chickens?
Everybody has chickens. We don't have chickens, but everybody has chickens. Okay. Gosh. Okay. So I can use that as well on not moving or not making a change. Even, I guess it's still technically your competitor is what they're currently doing, but it would work in that way too, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're exactly right. Yeah. So you're basically saying, yeah, I mean, you could stay where you're at and continue being held hostage on your current home and having to constantly have a weekend project where you're always, kind of doing something, like fixing something, doing a maintenance project. Or you could buy this house today and have all that go away and then spend your weekends going to sandals and doing all the things you want to do.
You want to maintain your chickens and mow your yard, or go to sandals? Of course I want to go to sandals.
Who doesn't want to go to sandals? Yeah. So that's great. So again, an example of selling windows to home builders would be something like some builders will end up buying cheaper windows in order to save a few bucks. But if those builders decide to do that, then they are risking customer complaints, and they're risking the brand loyalty of their customers, and you have to decide if that's something you want to do. So again, it's like I'm kind of creating that suspicion, I'm creating that doubt by making those decisions.
Yeah, very good.
That's it. Okay. All right, I'm gonna skip this next one here, and that's elevating ideas. I mean, so this is a really cool thing I wrote down. And this is a really very advanced persuasion technique that he did that we need to talk about. And that's this concept called elevating ideas. This is what he said. He said, tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul of our country.
Oh.
I'll say it again. Tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul of our country. So it's like he's taking this. So let's break it down, right? So he's taking this concept, that about protecting American jobs. So it's that's what we think it is. It's just, no, I want to protect American jobs. I don't want jobs to go to foreign countries. No, it's not just about that. It's about protecting the soul of our country. It's just something even more and bigger than that, which is a really kind of interesting thing. So if you were to sell a home using this way, you would say, this home is more than just a property. It's the heart of your family's legacy. Or the big thing I'm constantly always saying is that, this home is not a home, it's Superman pajamas. And, this is a story that I like to tell all the time, that I was young, I was a kid from the 80s, and I had this one picture that you've of course seen, and it's me wearing Superman pajamas. And how old do you think I'm in that picture? I don't even really know.
4, 5.
Okay. I know. I'm bad at that kind of stuff.
You're a man.
Okay. So I'm 4 or 5 years old, and I got this super blonde mop haircut in the 80s, an orange carpet, and there's a wooden choo-choo train. I'm in Superman pajamas, and I'm super happy, and I got crazy gap teeth, and so I tell the story all the time that that's what you're selling. You're selling Superman pajamas. People people could buy any kind of shelter they want, but they're not buying a shelter. They're buying Superman pajamas. They're buying I want to this is an experience I have with my family. I saw that picture. It's kind of crazy, and it's I want to do that for our kids. I want to kind of keep making that happen and making that experience happen. And so what you're doing here is you're elevating it, right? Which is a very powerful concept. It's hey, don't just you're not just buying a home today. You're buying a place to re-experience Superman pajamas with your kids. It's you're elevating to something even bigger for them. So, which I think is interesting things. I think what you would say, I'm curious what you would say, is how do we personalize that, right? How do we find something that's like important to them, that's meaningful to them, and how do we use that to like elevate that it's not about this, it's about that.
I think it's looking into what we got to go future and past for them, right? So I think, and I don't know which direction is the better to go. So let's say,
I think the past first would be kind of cool, like Superman pajamas, right? And then you go and you anchor it in the future.
I mean, that makes sense, but I think I'm trying to think of the awkwardness though. If I'm talking to somebody, and again, right, I'm on my 55 plus. If I'm talking to a couple and I say, I mean, I guess I could tell me about being at your grandparents' home when you were a child. And what do you want to, how do you want to have those memories come alive in this home in the future with your grandkids? So you can go that direction. Or if they're already talking about it, the vision of like, I'm going to have my grandkids here and they're going to do this and we're going to play games. Be like, oh, that's wonderful. Is that the kind of things that you did with your grandparents? To kind of go forwards and backwards at the same time, so that now this home that we're showing them, boom, it's the center of all of it.
I love that.
But I think you could do it either direction.
Yeah, I like that. Well, you made me think about. Yeah, that's really cool. So, and you could actually, add another NLP technique of match-based lead. So you could also add something like, like if I was selling 55 plus, I could say something like, I remember when I was a kid, when I was a little boy, and I got to go hang out with my grandparents. First thing they did, number one, was they gave me juicy fruit. Juicy fruit gum. I remember like it was like that's yesterday. I love juicy fruit gum. I back then I always get juicy fruit gum. And then my granddad would play checkers with me. And so I always had this checkers set up, and he was like ready to go. And so I had juicy fruit gum with my grandmother, and I had checkers with my granddad, and we were just like sitting there and just making that happen. And then so that would be like the match, right? And then it's like the pace. So the match was the grandma juicy fruit gum, and then the pace was checkers with my granddad. And so then the lead would be like, so what about you? Like, what's like a memory that like you had as a kid with your grandparents that you'd want to also like recreate with your grandkids, like when you decide to like create your grandparents' house. That's kind of cool too, because right now you're actually creating an identity called the grandparents' house. Yep,
you've just put all the little
these things.
Yeah, a little concoction here of all the little techniques. We got the grandparents' house. You're here in your hip grandma era, and yeah, what are you bringing forward? I love that, and I love how you demonstrate. You trained them how you want them to respond to the question by telling them about the juicy fruit gum. Mm-hmm. You made yourself
it makes
real.
Me get like watery eyes. Think about it.
I see that. The games, the checkers, and then now we come forward of what's that going to be for you? Tell me your story like that. That's wonderful.
Really cool. That's really cool because, so I like that because, you're training the customer in order to do this, and then you're doing this whole thing of like, so like this is what I think about my grandparents, and so I'm curious, like, what do you think about with your grandparents? Like when you were a kid, like what's a fond memory that you have, and then so you ask them. So like, why would they not want to tell that? Like you tell your story, they're going to tell their story, and you're like, all right. So I told my story, you tell your story, and so now, like when you have your grandparents' house, like when this is your grandparents' house, like tell me like what's the kind of memory that you want to like have for your kids? Do you want to have juice fruit gum? You have checkers? Do you want to have your story? Like what do you want to have for your kids that they're going to like tell like someday? They're like, this is what I remember my grandparents and like Mayma's house and Bebop's house and Big Dog's house, whatever the grandparent's name is. Probably should ask them that.
Yeah, what's your grandparent name?
What's your grandparent's name? Because they love that. Grandparents love bragging about their name.
Well, here in the South, as soon as you get a grandparent name, that is your name.
That's your name.
I mean, there's, fancy executives I work with, and once I find out their grandparent name,
that's their name.
That's their name.
Yeah, that's their name. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really hoping that mine's Boss Daddy. I really hope that.
I know. We all know.
We all know. I really hope I can pull that off. We have many years before that's going to happen, hopefully. But I hope that's the case. Okay. So, all right, let's move on. Let's move past the whole Trump thing. So again, he did a lot of amazing things to influence the American population. He's doing a great job. Again, regardless if you agree with his politics or not, we're just going to study his persuasion techniques. He did a great job. And so let's move on though. Let's talk about the companies that are affected by the Fed cuts.
Yeah.
Whew. So tell me about that.
Doge. Yeah. It's been a weird week. I've had a lot of conversations. not the businesses we're working with are uncertain, but they're selling to people that are uncertain. So in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area, where I also grew up, so I'm very familiar with this. In those areas right now, what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of uncertainty. They don't know that they want to purchase things because I don't know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow. Hey, my company has our biggest contract is with the federal government. We don't know that our contract's going to stay and going to do it. So right now, as sales professionals, we have to, when certainty is lost, we have to bring in even more certainty and give people that stability to be able to move forward if that's the right decision for them.
Okay. So I love this. So let's kind of break down this concept because we've been doing this now for 20 years. And so every 7 or 8 years, there's always a major recession. There's all kinds of problems that happen along the way. So this is our first rodeo. We've seen this kind of stuff along the way. And so here's the advice that I've said many times, and I'll say to people who are kind of dealing with this. Meaning, if you're a salesperson right now that's selling probably a consumer purchase, but it could probably apply to business as well, to people that are affected by these government cuts, and they're kind of in a weird spot right now. Like, what should they do? So here's some things that I would do. So number one is get your mind right in the sense that they are, like in this case, this is a home builder we're talking about, and they are coming into their homes. So, which is a weird thing, right? Like, so there's uncertainty that maybe they shouldn't do it, but yet there's also a lot of uncertainty that they don't like what they have, which is interesting. So it's like, I didn't learn a lot in public school growing up, but I did learn that 2 negatives make a positive. So like in this case, it's like, okay, well, there's uncertainty that there's a negative economy. There's also uncertainty that I don't want to stay where I'm at, and I don't like my house. I don't like my home. I don't like how it's affecting my family. And so how do we turn those 2 negatives into a positive? So here's what I would do, is I would call them out. I would just say, so Mr. Customer, so tell me your number one area of resistance that's holding you back from buying a house today, assuming we were to find something that totally knocks your socks off, that's better than anything else you've seen, that improves your life, better than what you have now. And then they're going to say, well, I don't know. Right now, we're just kind of starting the process because we're really not really sure because of the economy and because of, with all the Fed cuts, and we're worried about our job and what's going to happen, how it's going to affect us. And then I would say, again, the 2 negatives make a positive approach. So I would say, got it. So the fact that you're here today, knowing what you know about potential cuts, means that you must have a really big problem in your current house. You must have something you really don't like. Because if you know that there's some concerns out there about losing your job, then the only reason why you're here is because you have a really big problem in your current house that you want to avoid. And so why don't we talk about the really big problem, and let's see if we can fix that, and then we'll see if it makes sense for you to risk the economy and what's happening. So 2 negatives make a positive. That's technique.
That would have been so helpful several hours ago. That was really good.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to pull it. It's not hard to pull it off. It just takes a lot of courage to pull it off, right? It's a simple technique. It just takes a lot of courage.
Well, as a sales professional, we can't get sucked in to the emotional state of where they are, right? So if we start to go like, oh my gosh, like that's super scary. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have a job. If we go into that with them, we can't be helpful anymore. We have to stay outside of it. Now, you want to be sympathetic, you want to be gentle, you want to be understanding and have compassion, but you can't go in it or else you're not helpful. And that's the same for leadership. You can't go into things with your team. You need to stay outside of it so you can be helpful and you can lead them and guide them and help get them out of the situation that they're in.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. So it's like Sherpa selling, right? So you're like or Sherpa coaching. It's you're a Sherpa helping a climber get to Mount Everest. Again, you can't do everything for them, but you can give them all the information to make a wise decision. And so in this case, I'm not going to force you to buy something that you don't feel comfortable with, but I am going to kind of like be transparent with you. I'm going to be honest with you. And that is like, yeah, well, the obviousness of things is that there's got to be something really, really bad going on if in your current life that would cause you to actually want to look at this if you're worried about the economic climate and what's really going on. So like it's just being transparent and just being honest with people. And then what I would do next is I would actually remove the pressure and lower the importance of having to buy a house today. So which is really going to get me back in rapport with them. So again, step 1 is just call them out on it, right? That like I totally get you, but the fact that you're here means you have a bigger problem, or else you wouldn't be kind of looking. So that's kind of step one. And then step two is what I would do is I would just remove and lower the importance. So I would just say something like, so but with that said, why don't we do this? Let's just take buying a home off the table completely. There's no need to put pressure on you about buying a house. So instead, let's just see if we can find something here for you that is even worth like you making a change. Like we can just find something for you here that's even just like that's like the reward outweighs the risk. And if it does, then we can talk about does it make sense, the timing makes sense, and all that kind of stuff. So just like remove the pressure as much as possible. You'll now be in rapport with them and you can continue on.
I love that. And I think too, what's so important for people to know is that you're not saying that as like a technique. You're saying it because you believe it and it's the right thing to do for them at the moment.
100%.
And if you are saying it, but you're thinking, and then after I say this, I'm going to get you to buy something for me and spend all your money, they're going to feel that doesn't work anyway. You have to be like fully in it and in that energy space and letting them know, I really am. Like, let's really take it off the table to relieve the pressure and go through. And then you might naturally get back into the state where it is time for them to buy, or you'll know the next space for them to be because you also have taken the pressure off yourself, not just them. Very interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
The paradox of it.
Very interesting. It reminds me of something, what you were saying. There's a really good video that talks about from Robert Greene and laws, and he's author of Laws of Seduction, Laws of Power. And basically just talks about like the point, the importance of presence and the importance of kind of like owning the space and like owning the room. And he talks about like from persuasion perspective, like who do we know is like the one in charge? And he kind of goes over and kind of talks about that. But that's really what you're talking about is like, is if the customer feels that you are, it's like a trick you're using, like they're just kind of tricking and it's like ingenuine, then of course they're not going to believe you. So you have to be honest. Like it's just an honest thing that I truly am here to lead, protect, and serve you. And I want to free you from this concern. Because right now the customer in front of you has a concern. Like they're like shackled, right? They're shackled with, I'm like scared and nervous about losing my job, and I'm scared and nervous I can't afford this. But at the same time, like I'm in this neighborhood and my kids are getting beat up, they're getting bullied, and we got break-ins, all this kind of stuff. And so I'm like, I don't know what I'll do. I'm like, Dan, if I do, Dan, if I don't, I don't know what I do. I'm like in a bad situation. Like, please help me. Like that's what they're saying.
It's a very intense home life right there.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bad.
Well, and I like, okay, earlier.
We're talking about DC. It's pretty bad over there.
You're not wrong. So I'm thinking about earlier when you were talking about, black and white and a leader saying, I need you to follow the process. And the guy that you were coaching, I think the home building owner telling him he needs to be black and white, but tell the team to follow a process. Well, that along with what you're saying right here, that's the catalyst. That's the energy that I believe allows then the salesperson to say, let's take buying a home off the table for you for right now. And let's just go see if we have something that even interests you. But without the leader being the catalyst first saying, just follow the process. That's all I'm measuring you on. Just do that. It's hard to get into that state. So I think that's how the leader and the salesperson can work together and support and really be in that space, really be able to. And for salespeople, I think something that's really important is practicing changing their state. Mm-hmm. So if you're one being, your one energy as a salesperson is I'm going to sell you. It's not nuanced enough too. And sometimes, I mean, I probably even shared here that I don't hard sell or even follow up all the time with everyone that we talk to because they're not all the right people to be, talking about like, we're not for everybody. They're not all the right people. Now, if they are the right people, then I'm all in. And you're going to hear from me. I'm going to be like a 16-year-old boy just calling. Well, I'm going to be like a 16-year-old boy from the 80s calling, not the 16-year-old boys today. Maybe Snapchat, snapping. I don't know. But I'm going to be obsessive about it because you're the right person. But if you're not, like, let's just find out if there's even anything right. Or if my job is to help you solve your problems, if I'm not the right person, I'll send you to who can help you because I know my industry that well. And that's an option as well, too. That's okay. But in order to be able to go into those different energies and those different states, it's really helpful if you have a leader that is supporting you in that.
Love it. Okay. All right. So let's kind of flip the conversation for a second here. So what about What about if you're an employee, because it was an interesting topic, right? So if you're an employee and an employee's like, I'm so worried about losing my job. Like, to me, I think that's really interesting, right? Because when a person says that to me, when a person makes a statement like that, it's like they're very external. Like it's an external concept, because they're basically saying that, like, I'm worried that it has nothing to do with me. Like, it's the company is going to like let me go, or in this case, it's like the government, right? But people need to be internal. And so how do we get a person to go from like external to internal? Because again, you look at Elon Musk, and like, here's a good example of this that I'm sure people are not going to like what I'm about to say, is that, he came out and he said, hey, just send me, like, I'm just going to send you an email and just send me 5 things that you're doing this week, like 5 things you're adding value. So what he's basically saying is, like, I want to understand like the internal value that you're bringing to the organization, right? And they're like freaking out about it. Like, I can't believe he's asking me this kind of question, right? But it's like, so it's this weird kind of like thing of like, how do we teach people to be internal? Because that's all he's asking is like, what is your value? And like, do you know your value? And like, what are you doing that's bringing value? And like, focus on that. And if you do that, you're not going anywhere. Like, the government's not going to get rid of you as long as you're like bringing value.
Right. Well, yeah, it was interesting to me too, because top performers, they're dying for someone to ask everything that they did.
I love that question. That was it. Oh my gosh.
That opportunity that somebody gives,
just
like
5? Do I have to stop at 5?
Let me tell you everything that I do. I mean, with somebody, please stop and ask me what I've done. I'd love to tell you everything that I've done. Right. And so that's interesting. It's kind of an interesting concept in itself of where the triggering is coming from that. And it's not just going to be the person, it's going to be culture and things too. But if I want to get outside of that to myself, I think what the sad thing about how upset people got in these situations, the compassion that I have for people that are fearful for losing their job. And there is, if you're going through that, that's a difficult thing. But do you first know what you're worth? Do you first know, are you proud of yourself every day? And I think that's a really interesting concept in all areas. Like, what you want, are you proud of yourself in that area? And if you are, and you're learning and you're growing and you're proud of yourself, well, it's going to keep going, and it's going to translate, and you're going to be unfireable because you keep doing more and more and more. And if something happens and your business goes away or your job doesn't exist anymore, you're just going to go somewhere else, because you also know your worth. And so what's sad to me about it is it seems like there aren't cultures where people know their worth and aren't proud of it. And we only grow and become more and do more when we're already proud of what we're doing. If you think that what you're doing is not important, if you are struggling to figure out 5 ways that you added value, you're not looking for more. You start moving in the reverse of doing the other side of it, doing negative things instead of positive things for your future. So there's a lot going on there. There's a lot culturally going on there. There's a lot internally going on there that I'm not in control of my life. And so let's just start. Let's start today with what's one thing that you are in control of. What can you do? And again, I heard you this last week and today talk about covenants. And covenants to me, and I'd love, you're the expert on covenants, but from my perspective and listening to you, the covenant is, I'm going to show up and do a great job no matter, boss, how you treat me, client, how you treat me, company, how you treat me, Doge, what you say to my company. None of that affects, because I know who I am, and I believe so much in who I am and my value that I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to be my best every day. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. And the other side of that is, I'm going to be good if you're nice to me. I'll be nice to you if you're nice to me. I'll respect you if you respect me. I'll do my job if I feel like you're doing your job, or you give me good boundaries or tell me what to do, then I'll do it. But I don't want to live that way with everything else is the only reason that I can do something. I'd like to be my own force. I'm going to do this because that's who I am, and it doesn't matter what's around me and what's happening.
You said it beautifully. You nailed it. You nailed the covenant versus the contract. But that's exactly right. And I think, and again, it just goes back to this whole idea of like external versus internal. And I also wrote in this book I wrote called the Mindset of Sales Warrior that you helped me write and edit as well. I talked about this whole chapter of like how strong is your me, and that's the idea too. It's which also connects. There's so many connections here, right? So you have how strong is your me, which is what you're talking about. It's like how much do you believe in you and like your value, and versus how much are you letting, which is the great Steve Jobs quote. How much are you letting the opinions of other people drown out your inner voice? So that's like his famous quote. Versus like how much do you have your own inner opinion, like of what you believe and like how much value you're bringing to the table and like what you're supposed to do today, like your own like purpose, right? So that's very intrinsic, which is different than the extrinsic. And so extrinsic is, I'm kind of sitting around waiting for like the world to tell me what to do, or I'm waiting for my boss to tell me what to do, or I'm waiting for society to tell me what to do, or I'm waiting to Facebook or whatever. Someone else is going to tell me kind of what to do and how to think and like what to happen. Like that's a very extrinsic kind of concept. And what's really sad about the whole thing is that also kind of creates this culture of this contract-based culture versus a covenant-based culture. And that contract-based culture is exactly what you said, which is like, as long as you do something for me, I will do something for you, right? Like can you imagine like if you and I had a relationship like that, it's like, well, you didn't cook dinner tonight, so I'm not gonna take the garbage out. Oh my God, that'd be horrible. Can you imagine? Like that's how we that's how we operated, which I'm sure there's probably plenty of couples that do operate like that. Like I am not going to do that for her because she didn't do something for me, or vice versa. Like it's a really bad way to like run a relationship, run anything. But instead it's a covenant. It's like my job is to show up and be the best husband I can be for you, like no matter what, right? Like that's like regardless of, you're in a bad mood or you're, just have an off day, like, it doesn't matter. Like that's my job is to be the best I can be, like for myself. And really it's probably the thing. It's not really even for you. It's really for me, because that's really like the reframe of the whole thing. Because if I'm like showing up to be the best version of myself for you, then it's still external, but it's like, no. I'm here to show up and be the best version of me for me.
Because that's who you are.
That's who I want to be.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, it's about me. It's about me. And it's like this weird things. I know you talk all the time that we got to be selfish, and which is a weird like reframe as well, because people are like be selfless. Well, you're always like be selfish, and it's like what we're talking about here is if I can actually be selfish and just like every day I'm gonna be the best version of me for me. I'm gonna be the best version of husband because I want to be the best version of husband for me, or the best boss, or the best salesperson, or the best whatever. Then in turn it's also going to be the best version of me for you.
Yeah.
Whew, it's a lot.
That's a lot. As you're talking though, it's making me think too that it's protecting your mindset against the others. Because if I'm sitting here, right, and I'm very grateful that I am not right now in a position where my job is going to get cut, that Doge can't cut my job. So I don't have that worry. So I'm blessed by that. However, if I was in that situation right now, if I'm thinking about that all the time, I'm getting probably worse at my job, and I'm feeling worse. And then the worse I feel, the less I do, the less I can do, as opposed to if I am so focused on what's in front of me and what my job is and what I'm supposed to do, I don't have time to think about the other stuff. And then if it happens, then I just handle it. So I think it's a selfless thing to not worry about it, to just focus on what you're doing. What do you have control over today? One of the great sales leaders, Lisa, she says, control the controllables. She always says that, and I love it. Control the controllables, because you can't do anything with the rest. You can't do anything. You can't be in charge of what Doge is going to do or not do, or your boss or your company, if that's not affecting you. Any of those things, the economy. If I'm worried about if interest rates are going to go up or down, I'm not doing the thing in front of me right now and not becoming better. And I'm not serving somebody that I should be serving because I'm worried about interest rates or Doge or the economy or war or anything else that I don't have control over. So I think it's protecting you as well to not worry about it and not think about it.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's great. Yeah, it reminds me of a concept sometimes. One of the things that we do with our clients is that we put them on 3 calls a month, and it's 20 minutes. It's a 20-minute video every week that they have to watch, and they go and experience, they practice it, and then they get on a weekly dojo session with one of our trainers who helps them experience it and talk about it and how they can apply it to their actual customers. And we talk about real life situations. And something's so interesting all the time is that clients will cancel because they're like, I think we've got enough of this, and we'll, again, after several years, they'll have success and they'll cancel, and then they'll come back. They'll come back like a year later. And one of the things I realized one time is that one of the reasons why the success went down is not as much about the content, even the content obviously is important, but it's because they didn't fill the mind space with something productive. So at least what we were doing with them is that we were forcing them to watch a 20-minute video that was productive, and it was like giving them something that they can control, that was intrinsic, that was adding value to their mindset, process, language, like just being a product, kind of thing. So we're filling that mind space with that. Then we're forcing them to have a conversation around it during the week, for several minutes during the week. And then we're having a hour-long conversation with them on how they're going to apply it again. So we're like filling mind space of like, so we take that, let's say 4 or 5 hours a week that they're actually like kind of talking about something that's like positive, that's in their control, they can make a difference and make it happen. And all of a sudden they get rid of us because they're like, oh, we got it now. But what they don't do is they don't fill that mind space. And so what they do is now they have these like empty rooms in a house. And instead of like putting like furniture back in that room and like making the room look pretty and making it look nice, instead it's just like an empty bedroom. And what do people do with empty bedrooms? They put junk in there, right? Because it's like, oh, well, no one's going to use the space, so we'll just kind of like put crap in there. And so they just put crap and crap and crap and crap. That's what they do. And so they just take those empty rooms and those empty mind spaces, and now they just fill it back up with excuses and talk about the economy and talk about problems. They don't talk about how to solve those problems. And that's my theory. And so that's an interesting kind of concept that you're talking about, is that like just having like some kind of like discipline, proactiveness of like, how can you like fill your mind space with something good? Because if you don't, it's going to be one of those empty rooms that you're just going to put crap in.
Looks like you've circled back to right where we started today with repetition. We have to have repetition, and you want to have repetition of the good things so that you're controlling your mind. Because you're right, our minds on their own do not go to positive, healthy places for most people. That is a practice and a habit to stay in a positive learning mindset where you're improving. That's why people you started this at the beginning too, going to church every single week. And the reason we go every single week is to have those moments that your mind space is being programmed in a positive, healthy way that makes you a better human being and able to serve others in a better way.
Love it. Yeah. So say no to empty bedrooms, because empty bedrooms, you only put crap in. We don't want to do that. So you got to fill the rooms with something good. Okay. So one last topic, and then we'll call it a day. But before we do, though, if you like what we're talking about, if you like these ideas of, again, bringing in the highest persuasion and high performance psychology practices through NLP and different things that we know, talking about entrepreneurs and talking about businesses, talking about salespeople, analyzing and breaking down different leaders and their influences. If you like all this stuff, then obviously subscribe. It tells the algorithm that we're cool. And as we think we're cool, our kids think we're cool, and we'd like you to think we're cool too. So definitely subscribe, and we'll do more of this stuff. But one last topic, though, I want to do, it kind of goes along the same thing, is this new thing. There's always some kind of new thing. It's so crazy, which is funny. That Gen Zs are doing this thing called task masking to look as busy as possible in the office. And so the basic concept, right, is that right now, companies are saying, hey, get back to work, stop working from home. And so come into the work. And so they're saying that Gen Zs are basically trying to like look busy to, sort of task masking. So they're not really doing anything productive, but they want to like look busy. And so I'm curious, what would be your advice? That's what I want to hear. So like if there's a Gen Z person listening right now, what would be your advice to that person who is task masking?
I want them to know that it's okay to go ask your boss what else you should be doing. And it's actually impressive when you get done with your work early and you get something done quickly and you go ask, hey, what else can I do? What else can I assist with? What can I learn? How else can I be of service here? That's going to skyrocket you in the eyes of your boss and in your business. So I think it's an amazing thing to do. I think one thing as for employers is that we might need to realize that our Gen Z employees they might have started in the COVID days working from home. So as the rest of us grew up in a company and we come in and we're brand new and we're watching the work ethic of other people, they might not have had that experience. Or maybe they came in and we were on a rotation where only 25% of the company is there that day. Or you might even still have half your company that's working remotely. So we have these new employees, even if they're in the office, they might not have a lot of senior people to watch and to mimic and to model and to ask questions to. And so as employers, I think we can be proactive in guiding them. And we might think, at this age, they should be a little bit above that. But we have to remember that some of their education, especially workplace education, is probably stunted because of the time that they came into the workforce. And so we need to give a little extra help right now. But for those Gen Zers, it is not impressive to be busy all day and not get a lot accomplished. And that is what your employers are looking at. They're looking at the results and the work that's being done. And even if you turn something in that's incredible, but it took you way longer than they expected, that's not going to work out good for you. So feel free to go and talk about it and ask what else you can be doing. It's another one of those paradoxes where I think sometimes people hesitate because they're like, if I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, or I have to ask what else, am I not important here? No, that actually is going to make you one of the most important people. So that's my perspective on it. But what would you tell a Gen Z person?
I love that. I mean, I think, again, if an employee came to me and said, hey, hey boss, I've done this and this and this, and I'm now done with what I thought I'm supposed to do. So what else can I do to add value in this role? I'd be like, oh my gosh, like you're great. I would just be so excited if they ask me that question. Or if they don't want to say that, then they can do like an embedded suggestion, and they can, or a bind, and they could say, hey, here's a few things that I think I should be doing, like in addition to what I'm doing now, because I have some white space on my calendar. This is what I'm going to put my time into. Or what else could I do instead of that? Like, do you agree with where I'm going to take my extra time, and here's some things I'm going to do to add value? Or, what else can I do? So you could also just do that. Like if you're worried about just asking what else I can do, you could like offer suggestions and then kind of couch it with a question of what else can I do? So I think it's, again, phenomenal thing that I would love a Gen Z. I love any employee to obviously do. I don't care what ranking you are in the organization. If you have white space on your calendar, then you 100% should be going to the person above you, and you should be telling them, hey, here's some suggestions that I want to start working on, some things that add value. But is this the right use of my time? Because no employer wants to go add more personnel and add more overhead. That's not what we want to do. The other thing too, and this is a really tough one, and to kind of finish up, is it is what it is, but people need to look at like the money that they're charging the company, and they got to remove the entitlement from it. So for example, like let's say
I want to clarify something. When you say money you're charging the company, you mean their salary and or their bonuses, commission?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so just to make sure everybody understands what you're saying.
Thank you. Like a Sheldon moment that I just had there. Okay. So
you just sounded like a business owner, and if you're an employee, you might not have caught that.
Got it. Okay. So let's say you're charging whatever $50 an hour. So $50 an hour to do said task. It's $50 plus it's an extra $15 an hour for employment cost and for taxes and for healthcare, and so it's really $65 an hour. It's like what you're technically charging the company in order to do that. So you have to think about it like that. It's like, okay, like I did $65. I got $65 an hour to do blank today, right? Like so, like did my company make a return on that time? And you have to think about that, like, because really, like the goal is to actually give a 10 times return. Like that's the ultimate goal. And so it's not just, it's not just I charge $65 an hour to do this. Is that worth $65? It's no, because the company now has to like take that time and they have to like turn it into money, and they have to turn it into something they can go resell or go do something with it. And so that $65 has to go through a lot of people. And so it has to be really kind of turned into something that's kind of worth like $650, like when it's all said and done, so it's like, how are you contributing to that? And like, that's the ultimate goal. And so people have to think like that. Like, that's where I think the struggle is so often that people are having, is they're not kind of connecting the dots to that. So again, people might not like what I'm about to say, but so like just yesterday, we had a mishire. Again, we have mishires. We do all kinds of interview processes and we try to get it right. We're a recruiting company, but sometimes you just get it wrong. It's just how it is. So our goal is to get it right more times than we get it wrong, but sometimes you get it wrong. And so yesterday we had a person. It was an assistant type role in the organization, and just on day one, like just there's too many times where the person was like, "What do I need to do? What do I need to do?" But it wasn't like what else can I do? It was It was like this weird like reactive type of mentality, not like I want to add value. Like, teach me what to do. What can I take off your plate? So it wasn't like from that perspective. It was more from this perspective of like, I'm just going to sit here and just kind of wait for someone to tell me what to do. Like, it was just this weird energy that was going on, and it just wasn't a culture fit for us. And so you just don't want to be that person. You don't want to be the person that's like sitting around like waiting for someone to like tell you what to do. Instead, you should have like this feeling of like, I'm charging this company a lot of money for my time, and are they getting a return out of my time? Because if they're not, it's probably not going to be a good deal for them.
Yeah. And I think if we have the mentality exactly to what you're saying is give more. How can I give more? Really in all areas of our life. How can I give more that does come back to you? And you grow and you learn. One thing, when I used to do a lot of speaking in colleges and talking to young people right before they go out in the workplace, one of the things I think is really important is making lateral moves or being willing to make lateral moves and to learn other parts of the business that you're in, not just doing the things that are your job. There's a lot of things I've watched about people like, this is my job. I do this one thing. I do one thing. And if you are happy and you don't want to grow and you just want to have one specialty and that's your thing, that's fine. But if you want to really be of value, you want to earn more money one year, or you want to go into leadership, or maybe you want to even one day see yourself in executive leadership, you have to make lateral moves and you have to do a lot of jobs that aren't your job. Otherwise, you can't run an entire department or region or company of a lot of people's jobs if you don't know any of them and you've had no experience in them. And so I think that's another paradox too of thinking, I'm just going to do this one thing, I'll be rewarded. But the people that go above and beyond, that do more than what's on their job description, that learn more, and even will step into other departments willingly, they're the ones that end up with the really big titles and the really big checks. But they paid their dues, and now they're able to run so many different departments because they know them, they understand it, they know the people there, they know how their job affects other people as well.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. So we'll kind of close it up. So again, the main concept here is don't task mask as a Gen Z, or just in general, don't be someone who is just kind of sitting around waiting for someone to tell you what to do. Instead, like, just do your job, and then if you have white space, just go ask the most amazing question on the planet, which is, hey boss, like, what else can I do? Like, what else can I do to help out? Like, God, what a great question that is. Like, just like music to ears, right? I might start crying when people ask me that question. Okay. Anyway, all right. So we talked about so many things today. We talked about task masking. We talked about the Trump speech and that he had to Congress, his first State of the Union in 2025, and we broke it down, all of his persuasion concepts that he did. And obviously, we talked about companies being affected by the Fed cuts and just so many things. So just a really great show. So again, if you like the show, definitely hit the subscribe button, like it, share it with all kinds of people. It tells us that we're cool, and that would be fun for us to feel. So until next time, this is Jason Forrest. Push yourself, become a better version of you.